On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, Sarge and I reviews the embarrassing loss at home in front of Beyonce the Houston Texans suffered at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Nation, y'all don't lead the Texans just let. I'm John Hickman, your Texans Credential Media member, and alongside I'm sitting with the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge Bearfield. Thank you guys for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the Locked On Texans family, your team every day. Today, we will give our overall thoughts of the current state of the Houston Texans. And you guys want to make sure you stick around because that's going to be one of those moments where I say, Sarge, the floor is yours. We also talk about DeMeco Ryans' defense. Has the back finally been broken? They played bad to their standards. We open up today's show looking at CJ Stroud, the gift that stopped giving on Christmas. He had an abysmal performance. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Sarge,
what's going on?
The Houston Texans were embarrassed at home on primetime again.
In front of Beyonce.
Christmas, in front of Beyonce. And yes, we're going to talk about missing Azeez, Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward. Yes, the loss of Tank Dell hurt the Houston Texans offense, and I think this team is still feeling the effects of that game played a couple of days ago. But we would be bad at our jobs as reporters, as journalists, and I think overall lovers of the game if we don't keep it real and say the obvious. CJ Stroud was an inferior quarterback Wednesday. The offense was atrocious, and the overall sight of watching that inept offense was hard to get through. And I think the blame is solely on at least 80% CJ Stroud's shoulders.
You hold on.
That's just me.
You think 80% of the blame on
about
the Christmas Day game is on CJ Stroud?
Yes.
So you're blaming CJ Stroud when it was 3rd and goal and Nico Collins was by himself on the left side, all by himself. Then all of a sudden, Joe Mixon goes into motion and lines up on the same side as Nico Collins, taking away any opportunity to throw the jump ball or to throw
I watched that play develop, and I said, wow, CJ, you didn't have to force that ball out. Let the routes develop a little bit. The offensive line was giving you enough time. That's just my opinion. Yes.
So let me say this, right? Let me say this. Will I blame CJ for Wednesday's game? I will give him some of the blame. I'm not giving him 80.
Scale of 1 to 10, where are you range-wise?
When it comes to CJ?
Yes, sir.
I'll say 5.
Okay.
And I'll give you, and the reason why I'm saying 5 is because when CJ, when the offense is humming and going well, you give all praises to the quarterback. Then when it's not going good, you can't say it's the play calling or whatever the case may be. So CJ did not have a good game. CJ took accountability for not having a good game. CJ came to the podium and talked about it. I asked CJ about the difference between year 1 and year 2. And he said, I'm playing a little banged up, but that's not an excuse. I got to make better plays. I just not making the plays this year. Took full accountability, right? Who doesn't take those type of accountability? Bobby Slowick. And what I will say is this. No, Bobby Slowick didn't throw the missed pass to Nico Collins and then come right back and miss Dalton Schultz, what would have been at least 30, 40-yard gain when he was wide open in the flats. That had nothing to do with Bobby. But some of those play calls were atrocious. And I'm not going to keep harping on it. We've talked about that on numerous occasions. But I'm saying I can't blame CJ and give him 80% of the blame and then give Bobby only 20% of the blame. No, I'm going to give CJ 50% of the blame. I'm going to give Bobby 25% of the blame, and then I'm going to give the offensive line the other 25% of the blame because although CJ did have a lot of time on some plays, a lot of that ended up being also him running for his life because Hey, say it with me, John. Delayed blitz and stunts. That's the one of the things that we've been harping on that. So yes, I'm gonna say 25% to Bobby. I'm gonna say 25% to the offensive line. Now let's get back to this 50% of CJ Stroud. Some people are gonna say, Sarge, you're caping for CJ. You're over here taking up for CJ. I'm not trying to take up for CJ, John. All I'm saying is I've watched quarterbacks be under duress and don't feel comfortable in the pocket. I've watched numerous quarterbacks. John, let me put it like this. David Carr wasn't a bad quarterback. He wasn't a bad quarterback. He wasn't a great quarterback, but he wasn't a bad quarterback. But if you getting hit or sacked, what did he get sacked? Like 76 times, I think, or something?
Broke the record
Yeah.
early in his career. Was never able to bounce back from it.
76 sacks, John. How many hits you think he took? How many times you think he was rushed? Now what? I'm gonna give you another example. Even when Deshaun Watson was with the Houston Texans, when he took what year he took like 67 sacks, 67, 70 sacks around that. Deshaun Watson, I'm sitting right there covering, watching, and the difference is Deshaun is more athletic than CJ, so he was able to get out of the pocket and make some things happen. But he was shell shocked as well. So even though CJ is getting more time than he has been the last couple of weeks, he's been getting a little bit more time in the pocket. You can clearly see that CJ is shell shocked.
So this is where I'm not going to say push back, but this is where my thoughts and opinions come in.
Come on with it.
Watching that game, the overall landscape of this year, overall thoughts of this year, which we'll get into the current state. I think Bobby plays way more than the 20%. Right. And that's a fact, right? Yes, the play calling and offensive line and everything that's been going on with the shuffling of the offensive line through 17 weeks has played a part into why CJ Stroud played as bad as he did, I think, this past week against Baltimore. Saturday's matchup was a little up and down for CJ, but for the last couple of weeks, a lot of that plays a part into CJ. But strictly looking at Wednesday's loss, under 200 yards passing, led an offense that was 2 of 8 on third down in the first half, 4 of 15 overall. 7 drives of 5 or fewer plays. CJ did, I think, a terrible job of getting the ball out quicker. He walked into some sacks, not so much the breakdown of the offensive line, but an area of his game we wanted to see consistency out of him from and progression in the game where it seemed like a couple of weeks ago, he did a good job of it. But against the Baltimore Ravens, he didn't getting the ball out quickly. He failed to do so, and it hurt his playmakers, it hurt himself, and it hurt the offense, and it hurt his team. Overthinking and overthrowing wide open receivers. So that's where I cannot give Iboka the blame to Bobby Sloyd. We get caught up in scheme and play calling and all of this. At the end of the day, in my opinion, the players got to go out there and execute. Through 17 weeks, we can look at the help or the lack thereof from the sideline from your offensive coordinator. But against the Baltimore Ravens, a team you really want to beat heading into the playoffs to get some type of real momentum, you fail to do that.
Okay, John, hold on.
Overthrowing wide open receivers.
Let me push back just a little bit.
Those completions would have kept the drives alive. Again, 7 drives of 5 or fewer plays. That's inexcusable.
You're right, John. You're right. Don't get me wrong. You're right. You got a right tackle playing left guard. You got
who may be playing better at left guard than he did at right tackle.
You got a right tackle who's a rookie.
Who's playing some good football right now.
He's playing some good football, but I mean, he's a rookie. So there were some plays that he didn't look good as well. And I told him this on Sunday. Say, man, you playing some really good ball, but there's some plays that they got you. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back and look at the film. You got a Kendrick Green playing right guard, who hasn't played in I don't know how long. So I'm saying all that to say this. You're also missing Tank Dell. You're also missing Stephon Diggs, right?
No doubt about it.
So I'm saying all that to say that when you look at CJ, right, people, the one constant with the offense this year has been that CJ has been healthy. CJ has started every game. But
and I'm not sure how healthy CJ Stroud may actually be.
You're right. But John, going into these types of situations and like the 31-2 game against the Ravens, like what we're talking about now, that look, everybody played bad all across the board. But what I will say is this is I used to look at and talk to DeAndre Hopkins, and I used to ask him, "Hey man, how do you do it? Knowing coming into a game, this is before Deshaun, knowing that you really don't know who's going to be throwing you the ball, who's going to be throwing you the ball. How did you do that, knowing that who was throwing you the ball?" He said, "Well, you just got to go out there and play and do the best that you can." That's all I feel like CJ is doing. John, he has been mixed and matched with receivers. He's been mixed and matched with offensive line. That isn't what he started out with in training camp, OTAs, training camp, preseason. Things start to change for him.
I put that on the. I think week 5 is when we start to see the decline of CJ Stroud in terms of mechanics, in terms of his feet, in terms of just anticipation, because he was getting hit so much. A lot of the things that we want to kind of blame is, again, based on what Bobby and just the moving parts around CJ. Let's be real. Like, the moving parts around him hasn't been as consistent as we would like it to be. I'm speaking strictly towards the Wednesday game, where I'm looking at CJ overthink and overthrow wide open receivers. I'm looking at several of those opportunities designed to be quick throws to help CJ Stroud and this offense. Plays like the 3rd and 4, where both tight ends were open. CJ holds on the ball too long, or the RPO where Schultz is open. That was 3rd and 2, takes a sack. Things like that is where I'm not looking at the 16 weeks. I'm looking at week 17. I'm thinking to myself, CJ being that bad is a result of maybe a lot of things, but we can't ignore the fact that this was, in my opinion, an inevitable performance from a quarterback that has played like a shell of himself, the version we saw from his rookie year. He can continue. He can absolutely bounce back from this year. It won't be this year. It'll be in the offseason. I think this season for the Houston Texans will be a one-and-done appearance. But time and time again, this offense has shown when it counts, they are not prepared to save the day. The Texans are 1-5 against playoff teams. CJ Stroud has 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions in those games. The conversations isn't about CJ Stroud carrying the team. To me, at least, it's about taking what the defense is giving you, an area in Stroud's game where he's been inconsistent, and it's hurt this offense time and time again. And it's nowhere around it looking at Wednesday's performance. That's the problem from Wednesday offensively. Now, defensively, D'Amico's defense, I said it a couple weeks ago. I thought I was wrong, but it looks like the straw to break the camel's back was straws. You tweeted it during the game. The Houston Texans miss Aziz. The Houston Texans miss Jalen Petrie. The Houston Texans miss Jimmy Ward. And now, Danielle Hunter says the biggest thing we could do is just game plan better. So let's get into that and more when we come back. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot that you were paying for, or maybe paying twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even know and realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down, and it's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Get them out of here. With Rocket Money, they're a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Who doesn't like that? Who doesn't like everything that you absolutely need to know all in one spot? Whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and has saved a total of over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using the app premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. rocketmoney.com/locked-on.
Welcome back, Battle Red Nation, to the Locked On Texans podcast. John, the one staple for the Houston Texans this year has been their defense. And their defense has kept them in a lot of games. So one might say that the defense is the reason why the Houston Texans are the 2024 AFC South champions. With the way that the offense has been inept, has been ineffective, the defense has kept them in the game a lot. But against the Baltimore Ravens, you're already going up against a two-headed monster in
In
MVP
my
candidate
mind.
Lamar Jackson, with the way that he can kill you with his arms and with his arm and his legs. And then you turn right back around and you're going up against let me just put it like this. Like Derrick Henry is just like a tank that's just rolling through, but a fast tank, like a tank that would have been on the Fast and the Furious. He might have some nitro in him because he can run. But John, you're going up against that two-headed monster in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and the Houston Texans. Man, you look up and that defense suffered a lot. John, what was one of the reasons why you think that they weren't able to stop that Ravens offense?
Man, Sarge, and I really can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. But in the last two games, 124 to the Chiefs, 251 to the Ravens. You want to know what area of the game I'm mentioning?
Rushing.
Game.
Yep.
They've allowed 375 rushing yards in the last two games. Well, okay, who's been missing?
Yeah,
has been missing. Excuse me. Jalen Petrie's been missing. I think that's what hurt the Houston Texans. And going into this game, one of my keys to victories was, okay, the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best third down teams in the NFL. When you get an opportunity to get off the field on third down, didn't necessarily do a great job of that. Also, Baltimore didn't see a lot of third downs. Like that first drive, no third down on that first drive. And they just went right down the field and scored the TD. But I think for Houston, what really hurt them was the simple fact that they did not force a lot of negative plays. The Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens this is one of those moments where when you look at the talent, when you look at, I'm not going to necessarily say coach, when you look at levels and tiers of teams, this is where the reality sets in and you look at this Houston Texans we like. But just like they're not ready against elite teams. And they had a good moment, a good against Kansas City. Baltimore, 31-2. And that only came from a great play by Kamara Lassiter. They're not to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry at no point in the game.
John, one of the things that we've talked about, and we talked about that in the first segment, and we talked about this on the show before. I've told you, I've said to you on numerous occasions, the teams that win are the teams that win and go deep in the playoffs and make playoff runs and win Super Bowls are the teams who can win the war of attrition. And John, just like I talked about in the first segment when I was talking about the offense and the injuries, like that's been that has been the focal point of just the Houston Texans in general. I know we've talked about CJ's play, we've talked about Bobby, we've talked about some things on the defensive side of the ball. But John, injuries has decimated what was once a team that was destined to go to at least the AFC Championship game. Injuries has come in and it's riddled and it's tore down an offensive unit that we expected to do a whole lot better. And that's the exact same thing that is done with this defensive unit as well. I mean, no Azeez Al-Shaair at the middle linebacker position. No Jalen Petrie at the nickel slot position. No Jimmy Ward at the nickel position. When you're going up against a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who are very physical at the point of contact, even on the offensive side of the ball, you have to have people there that are ready to hit. And John, let me say this. One of the players, John, that the Houston Texans really needed on Wednesday against that physical Baltimore Ravens offensive line was Foley Fatukasi. He would have been great playing right there and, being another additional body to be able to stop a player like Derrick Henry. And so I'm not taking anything away from the players that were on the field. You just don't have those players like we mentioned earlier who don't run from smoke. None of the players on defense run from smoke, but these are guys who seek out contact. Azeez seeks contact. Jalen seeks contact. Jimmy seeks contact. And you needed those type of players on the defensive side of the ball, because now what are you doing again? Now you're trying to mix and match, and you got players, getting playing time in there that maybe normally would put in position that weren't used to playing in those type of positions. Now you also on the at cornerback, nickel cornerback position. You got Kamari moving in and out. You got Miles Bryant playing a little bit. And so I just look at that, and John, we have to go back real quickly, because the defense gave up 86 the defense gave up 86 rushing yards in the first quarter. John, they only gave up 8 in the second quarter to Derrick Henry. And so you only give up 8, but you're constantly on the field. Right. And that's what I don't like about the Houston Texans offense. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I will blame CJ, because that's on you to be able to sustain these drives and give your teammates some time to rest. Now, because it's not easy trying to go against Derrick Henry all that time. But John, you also look at it like you're trying to contain a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. On that 67-yard pass to Mark Andrews down the sideline, that was because everything that Lamar, they had him contained. He was able to get out of the pocket, and you make plays like that on the touchdown play that people want to say that that's on Derek Stingley. How long is Derek Stingley supposed to hold in a scramble drill? Right. Once you go into a scramble drill, everything. So now they're moving. They know where they want to go. Lamar knows where he wants to go. And so over time, they just got worn down, John.
I think this was a prime example of, hey, offense, save us, please.
Yeah.
Time and time again, we've tried to save y'all. And I don't necessarily want to put a lot of the blame on the defense. They allowed 31 points. That's unacceptable. I understand that. But again, one of my keys to victories was, if this is going to be a shootout, you need your offense to give you an opportunity. They have not been able to do so. And I think D'Amico Ryans, who said, didn't play our best ball, and it all starts with me, just a lack of execution. If we want to beat a good team like that, you have to execute. We didn't execute well. Credit to the Ravens. Really good football team. They came out. They played really well today. Obviously, we did not. And I think they tried to do what they could. Obviously, Foley would have been great for the Houston Texans as a good run plug-in stopper up the middle. But I think Burke and D'Amico did everything that they thought that they could to help win that game. At one point, they were even trying to match the Ravens going 5 defensive linemen versus that offensive lineman. But it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It was not enough. And I think, again, at some point, everybody, like, if you're living real life, somebody that continues to save the people, when they go home at the end of the night, you know what they want? I want somebody to save me.
Yep.
and that defense on the outside before they come home, in the locker rooms or on the field, and when you see them on social and everything, yeah, we're okay with being the people pleaser and saving of our friends. But when we go home and when they get and they take their showers and they lay down and they rest their head, I'm sure thoughts have crossed their mind, man. If only we could have just scored 6 more points. If only we would have gotten our offense to play and be able to sustain drives more than 5 plays.
Yeah.
And so defense didn't play to their standard. Didn't play to our standard for them, right? But, they got to do better offensively to give their defense a shot. So,
yeah,
Sarge, I can't wait to hear your overall thoughts on the current state of this team. I think you guys are going to love what Sarge has to say, because it's going to be real, it's going to be raw, it's going to be straight from the heart. And I don't think we're going to see the big man with the big hat and the big smile. I think we're going to see some totally different. So stick around, more Locked On Texans. For some of y'all, Christmas Day wasn't the greatest to watch unless you were able to hit big on FanDuel. The NFL playoffs is also almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250, in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a dub. You can bet on players who will score the first touchdown, or how many points will each team score. It's thrilling, it's exciting, and it's happening now over at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making the Locked On Texans your first listen of the day. Now, for your second listen, go find new Locked On NFL now with 2 every day. First, the man Roland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso and energy. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Start 31-2 in front of Beyonce, as the young kids like to say, in front of the hus. The way they lost, lethargic loss, pathetic on both sides of the ball. This is a playoff team, weak division. However, currently, I'm not sure how much faith we have in this franchise right now to not be a one and done playoff team.
All right, John, get myself together. Okay, let me say this. Look, ISO on me. Whatever apparatus you may be viewing me on through YouTube, whatever you're listening to us on while you're listening to the Locked On Texans podcast, your first listen of the day, whatever you're doing, turn your apparatuses up, come in a little bit closer. Let me say this. John, first off, I was reading on social media where there were some people calling for DeMeco Ryans' job after the 31-2 loss on Christmas Day in front of Beyonce. And I will say this, John, the Houston Texans overachieved in 2023. They overachieved. They sped the process of the rebuild up. Coming out of those 3 years, coming out of those adversity years that they had went through, they sped the process up by winning the AFC South, by going to the playoffs, by winning a wild card game, by losing in the divisional round against the Baltimore Ravens. And now they set the bar and the expectations through the roof. But what some of these Texans fans should have realized is that you're still in the rebuilding process. You only have a second-year head coach. You have a second-year offensive coordinator. You have a second-year quarterback. You have a second-year defensive end. You have a second-year quarterback in CJ Stroud, of course, and a second-year defensive end in Will Anderson Jr. There's a lot of young talent on this team that the Houston Texans are going to depend on to build this franchise. There's a lot of chatter going on about where this team should be right now. Yes, they had some horrific losses. They shouldn't have lost to the Titans. They should have lost to the Jets. They should have beat the Lions. They should have scored points in the second half, especially when they had the best team in football on the ropes. But they didn't. You know why? Because they're a team that's still learning. They're a team that's still developing. No, DeMeco Ryans is not Bill O'Brien. DeMeco Ryans is not Gary Kubiak. DeMeco Ryans is DeMeco Ryans. And if you're looking at a coach who's come here, changed the culture of the franchise, who has taken your team to 2 consecutive AFC South championships in his first 2 years, to the playoffs his first 2 years, you have got to be kidding me if you think that that DeMeco Ryans should be replaced. John, I've heard it all. Hey, he needs to be replaced by an offensive-minded coach. Then what are you going to do about the defense? They don't have defensive coordinators just running around out there like a DeMeco Ryans. Okay, so you fired DeMeco, you bring in Robert Saleh. How much better is that defense going to be? How do we know that Robert Saleh has the relationships with these players? One of the things that makes DeMeco who he is because he has that relationship as a former player, and he knows how to get this team motivated. Now, John, there has been a lot of problems and issues with the Houston Texans this year. There's been a lot of problems and issues with the offensive side of the ball. John, we know that CJ Stroud isn't playing as astronomical as he was his rookie year, but you're still in year 2 of your rebuild. You want to combine 11 games in 3 seasons. DeMeco has already won 19-2. He's won 19 games in 2 seasons. I understand where you want this team to be. I understand what the expectations was before, John. But that was a team that was expectations was based on when they were coming into the season on paper. They had the talent on both sides of the ball. But there's been a lot of adversity that this team has been through, especially with the injuries. And so I think that you need to take a step back. I think Texans fans need to take a step back and realize This thing isn't going to happen. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to. Hey, look, NRG wasn't built in a day. Super Bowl ain't going to be built in a day. The AFC Championship ain't going to be built in a day. You've got to give this team some time to develop, and you have to give this team some time to go through adversity, John.
I think a lot of Texan fans are just mad they got hot shots. The high that they wanted,
yeah,
it ain't what they got. And let's be real. Let's look around the NFL right now. Your own division, you got the Jaguars, top 3 team in the NFL draft this year.
With a coach that went to the Super Bowl and won.
With a coach that went to the Super Bowl. You got the Indianapolis Colts in their up and down season that they got right now.
With the coach who also went to the Super Bowl, right?
And Shane Steichen with Philly as a play caller. You got Tennessee, a coach that went where? It's over there with Joe Burrow and them boys, man. And you look at all of those situations in year 1 for Tennessee. Year 2, what does that look like for them? In year 1 for the Houston Texans, DeMeco Ryans, they won the division. So look at where he brought y'all last year compared to year 1 for Tennessee. Okay, let's look at year 2 for the team in Jacksonville. Year 2, what happened? Well, they squandered away down the stretch, and that allowed for your year 1 head coach to win the division and make the playoffs. Year 2 for Shane Steichen in Indianapolis still looks like some disarray. Not sure where they're going to go forward with their future. At the very least, Texan fans, sit back and appreciate the fact that you have foundations that has won games, meaningful games, division champs, a playoff game. When you look around the rest of the NFL, but if you look at your division, some of those teams are looking for it right now.
Yep.
It's just the fact of the matter, man. We've gotten so deep into microwave culture.
Yep.
Not just in football. This is just life. But if I'm speaking strictly to football, Patrick Mahomes ruined the game for a lot of people. Everything is supposed to be 30 points, immediate success. Joe Burrow kind of ruined the game for a lot of people. We need 30 points and immediate success. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Some situations are just what it is, a situation for that player, and it happened to be a great situation. It's taken some great quarterbacks a while to win a championship. We've seen teams and great teams not win championships, but they've been able to get there. What I'm saying is it's going to take some time. In the moment any type of adversity gets in your way, and this is for transfer portals. This is for high schools kids jumping forth to different teams. This is for any level of the game.
7-on-7.
7-on-7, you switch your teams. The moment something gets hard for you and you just want to quit and move on, you're never going to see the success that ultimately fans want to see, and that's a championship banner.
Yeah.
If the coach would have moved on from Peyton Manning early in his career,
you're right.
All right.
That's a great example.
Okay. And look what he did to the AFC South for years.
Yes.
Finally won it in 2007, whenever he won it. So pump the brakes on the fire. I was never a part of the DeMeco Ryans train. Game in and game out. He's bad. He's not going to make adjustments. He needs to move on. Pump the brakes, because I guarantee y'all, if you got to sit through David Culley one more time.
Hey, Melissa.
If you got to sit through, I'm only playing the OJs and the Osley brothers at training camp with all these young men around me, Lovie Smith era.
Hey, look, if you gotta go back into the era of, I'm the head coach, but I want to be the general manager, CEO, president. I want to be president of the team plus president of operations, ticket sales, and marketing. And I'm talking about Bill O'Brien.
If you want to go through that again, if you want your CEOs dancing in these videos, then go back. But I think the current state of this team, man, nothing's gonna get fixed in a couple of weeks. They're a one-and-done playoff team. I would be shocked if they win more than the game. They're a one-and-done team, but year two, I would be shocked if they win a playoff game.
Well, that's something we're definitely going to have to talk about.
I would be shocked if they win a playoff game, and you know why? Even when Azeez coming back, I don't trust the offense to help them out. But in year two, you're okay because it could be worse. Year two, you can look like the Jacksonville Jaguars, which will lead to your year three when you fighting for a top 3 NFL spot.
I know we're going to talk about this on the Locked On Texans podcast a little bit later on, but John, there is a matchup out there that the Houston Texans can get in the first round and they could win.
Let's talk about it tomorrow. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And you can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.